Hello, everyone. It's William with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary series. It'd help if I could remember my own name, wouldn't it? So the diary series for 1921. I'm a little frazzled because the dogs have just been wild today. We've had shelves hit the ground with books scattered all over the place and barking fits, which is why this is my third attempt at this. Okay. Yeah, as you know, I have a Great Dane, and when you have a Great Dane, they can do things like knock shelves over if it amuses them. Okay, and I should point out as well that this may be, I think, probably the penultimate video before I start traveling. So I'm probably going to do one tomorrow. There they go. And possibly do one in France. I'll be in France for the weekend of the 28th through the 31st. And then I will be finally settling in at Exile. Maybe that will take a day or two. We'll see. But I love doing those, so it probably won't be too much of a delay. And it will be really cool to be able to start doing these at Exile. And it's tempting to go forward and do the 1939-1940 diaries, since I will be at Exile, and also some of the letters that Dmitri wrote to his sister and other people while he was there at the sanatorium. But anyway, another possibility is to go all the way back and do some letters from 1908 and 1909, 1910, and then do the earliest adult diary entries, 1915. So not adult with respect to content, but the first surviving volume of diaries that Dmitri wrote as a independent young man and no longer an adolescent in the custody of his aunt. All right, so let's do the recap. Pretty simple. If you remember part 1 of the long diary entry of 30th April, there were no issues when he got back with respect to the monarchists who had chosen him as their preferred Romanov, and in the past when he'd gone to London or gone to the Riviera, there had been, crises when he got back. Things that had happened in his absence that they were upset about and decisions that needed to be made. And this time, he was very pleased, or at least professed himself very pleased that that was not the case. Okay, but the real issue was on the social scene with gossip, a lot of gossip, and a lot of it, in Dmitri's opinion, of either a malicious character or one of disapproval. So, yeah, he was dealing with that. And one of the rumors was that he and Coco had actually gotten married. So our cast today, in addition to Dmitri himself and Coco, is just one other person, Maria, Dmitri's sister. So let's get started. 30th April 1921, Saturday, Paris, 76 Rue Miromesnil, Dmitri's home address, and this is part 2. And in the first sentence, he is referring to, so this is one diary entry, one long diary entry. So going on from the video yesterday, his last sentence of yesterday's diary entry is, but alas, what's done is done, and there's no use complaining about it now, referring to the trip to Monte Carlo and the fallout from that. Okay, here we go. Yes, and in addition to that, after being in the warmth and with Coco, my mood changed greatly, and now they can say whatever nonsense they want about me. I don't care. I just have to take it while smiling inside. But frankly speaking, I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere for a long stay under the same conditions again. As I have already remarked in previous diary entries, I am not accustomed to driving around Europe with a wife on the left-hand side. It's too unpleasant to be constantly thinking about running into acquaintances, and if you do, how to handle it. Strange though it may seem, Coco thinks the same way, though she didn't say a word about it to me, but it was absolutely obvious that she felt very uncomfortable and was the whole time hoping to avoid unwanted encounters. Returning to Paris, I found Maria in a frightfully energetic mood. She has begun working in various charitable organizations among the Russians in Paris. In short, she has again begun to assemble around herself people who are eager to work, just as she did in London. Naturally, I say all power to her. It's splendid, yes, and beyond that, such work satisfies her as well. Okay, so is he implying there a little bit that he wishes he had some work that was as satisfying for himself as this is for Maria? I don't know. I know he was, in a general sense, unhappy with his life, there not being any strong sense of purpose or activity, not as strong as he would have liked, and even more so now after what had happened in Berlin. Okay, so we don't learn a lot about the relationship with Coco in this little section. He's acknowledging that being with her was of psychological benefit to him, that it really helped to snap him out of this deep depression, and that was the whole purpose of the trip, as you know. And yeah, it worked. Being in the sun, change of scenery, and especially being with someone who was as supportive as Coco obviously was being, was of great benefit to him. And we see the difference as far as how he's responding to the unpleasant things that people are now saying upon his return. And you know, he's learned to deal with this after a fashion. He's, if you recall from when he was a child, when he was a teenager, the diary entries of 1906 and 1907, sorry, I'm glancing off too much, he had a real struggle with anger. He was a sensitive kid, and he would get angry. Part of the problem was that he would internalize things and feel guilty about them, and then that would make him all the angrier when people sort of hit one of his sore spots. And he would have outbursts, and they were really, you know, the people who were the adults in his life, to their credit, were really working with him on that. Uh-oh. Looks like we might have take 4. Duke, you come here. Duke, come here. There's absolutely nothing out there. They've just gotten wound up today. Okay, go lay down. So anyway, yeah, they really worked with him on that, but, you know, it's an ongoing problem, I think. And he still takes things to heart. He still has anger issues, but he's decided now that he is going to not confront people about it, not say anything if they make, you know, if they touch upon that sore spot with him. He's just going to take it, as he says, and be smiling on the inside. And is that healthy? Well, you know, it probably would be better in a non-angry way to just say, hey, that upsets me, but, you know, this is how he's decided to deal with it. So good for him. This reference to a wife on the left-hand side. Well, I was puzzled by that at first because I'd never heard the expression, as you know, in past videos. But, yeah, it's just a mistress, isn't it? So a wife on the right-hand side would be a woman that you're married to, whether morganatically or not. And a wife on the left-hand side is a mistress. So he is equating Coco with a mistress, although it's still far from clear if they were actually lovers. To me, it's far from clear at this point whether they were actually lovers, and he doesn't spread any more light on that. But he is saying that he is calling her a wife on the left hand side. I wonder how she would feel about that. She would probably prefer to define him as a husband on the left hand side. But okay, that's neither here nor there. Okay, so it's interesting that he's not really concerned about it in Paris. You know, they can spend time with each other. That's not a big deal. The rumors will fly that she's his mistress, but, you know, it's not like they're going off together as a couple. It's not like, it's not like with Boris and Andrei, who had their mistresses long before the revolution, and they were serious relationships, and it was clear to everyone that for all intents and purposes, they were man and wife. So in Paris, it doesn't have those connotations. But he's decided, you know, that he's not gonna be reacting if people tease him about that. He mentions Coco's attitude just over and over again, doesn't he, about the fact that she is just as worried as he is about, or she was just as worried as he was about running into acquaintances in Monte Carlo and the other places they went. And my PhD supervisor, the late, great Professor Lindsay Hughes, always, you know, told me that when somebody, whether it's a point of law or whether it's a personal thing, when something is emphasized over and over and over again, it usually means that there's a problem. You know, that makes sense, right? If you go back and look at documents and you see reference after reference to the law about this or that thing, it usually means that that was not a law that people took seriously, that law was constantly broken, and that was why there was all the emphasis on repeating it all the time, and frustration with the situation. And I think in this instance that Dmitri is really bewildered and not totally comfortable with the idea that Coco was as worried about being embarrassed by being seen with him as part of a couple as he was worried about being seen with her as part of a couple, because, you know, obviously he was the one who, you know, had all these expectations. Coco was, everybody accepted her as a free spirit and an artist, but he was trying to do things respectfully, and it kind of shakes him a little bit, doesn't it, that Coco had this reaction. He doesn't know what to think about that, but it concerns him. Okay. We go on to Maria. As I've said in the past, and I continue to believe, that emigre women overall seem to have adjusted to life in exile much better, much more quickly and thoroughly than the men did. The men apparently wanted to sit around and reminisce and fantasize about overturning things in Russia, but the women just kind of rolled up their sleeves and got down to business. And as Dmitri says, Maria had done that in London, and she's doing it again now. And you know, it's kind of a gendered thing. It was accepted that women would be involved directly, not just financially, but directly in charity organizations and activities, and it wasn't really something that men did in that sense. You know, they would support charities, but not in the sense of holding fundraising bazaars and things like that. So, you know, it was harder, I think, for Dmitri to find an outlet now that the whole political role has exploded in his face. But, you know, he's pleased. He was worried about Maria. You remember how worried he was about her way back when they first returned in February from the south of France. He was worried that she was, and before they left for the south of France, that she didn't have any friends, that she was not connected and having a hard time. So I think he's genuinely pleased about this. Yeah. So the siblings, brother and sister, were always very solicitous of each other's well-being, sometimes too much so, too interfering, but not in this instance. And it makes me laugh because, you know, my godmother's mother, Countess Kleinmichel, was apparently not she disliked Dmitri. She didn't approve of Dmitri, and the reason she gave was that, you know, Maria set the example of doing everything she could to help the Russian refugees in exile, and Dmitri, in her opinion, didn't do anything. I guess she didn't see the value of him sort of playing around with politics. And, you know, if she'd talked to him about it, and if he'd confided in her, which I'm sure he wouldn't have done, she would have realized, or if she'd read his diary entries, she would have realized how much he reproached himself for leading what he called a stupid and empty existence, which he knew perfectly well that he wasn't accomplishing anything or doing anything constructive. He was just at sea. But anyway, what do we have next time? Well, we have more details about, well, Dmitri hasn't really supplied us with any details, so we'll have details of the specific work that Maria is doing at that time, and so that's quite interesting. And then he will turn briefly to what's going on in England, which is of great concern to him. He's watching that closely. I think he's interested, but he's also really worried. So, you know, Dmitri had anxiety issues. And so we'll hear more about that. But, you know, keep coming back for these. This is a very short, long entry, and it has some absolutely fascinating material in toward the end. It is involving Rasputin and involving how Dmitri continues to feel about himself in the aftermath of the Rasputin assassination. So some of the most interesting and important material in the diaries overall, I would say. So come back for that, and I'm pretty sure I will see you tomorrow. And otherwise, I will see you possibly from France and definitely from Shots Out. All right, take care. Bye.